Alright, what we have here that we're working on today is a 95 Trans Am. Best guess is it was probably a V6 car, and the guy pulled the V6 out and swapped to a pretty highly modified 350. Owner complaints are the clutch doesn't work right. First couple things you can do to check this out. Let me get my light here. To eliminate some real quick stuff, usually you have a slave cylinder and master cylinder go bad and they leak all out. So just first thing, easy thing to do. You can see there's plenty of fluid in there. As long as it's not dry, completely dry, it's usually still in operating order. Usually as long as it has just a little bit of fluid in the bottom, it's still good, or despite what anybody will tell you. Next thing, checking. Sorry about that. I had to get another battery for my light. It's easier if you have a light to help illustrate, what you're working on, so everybody sees it. As you can tell, I'm a little bit big for this car. Anyways, give it a little push on the clutch, and it is stiff. It does not want to push down at all. So this is probably going to be some sort of moving part inside the bell housing that's locked up. So let's crawl under here and take a look. Alright, so here's underneath the car. Left front wheel right here by my hand. Right front wheel up there. So in this place we just went ahead and replaced this part right here. This is your slave cylinder for your clutch. This is what actually disengages your clutch. It pushes your clutch fork forward, and in turn your clutch fork, I believe, comes back and allows your clutch to slide back. So we just went ahead and replaced this because the owner said that whenever he pulled the cover off, or he said that there was some sort of cover on it, he pulled it off and it was just in pieces. So we went ahead and replaced it. So now what we want to do is just kind of have him up there, press in on the clutch and watch it. Easy. Press in real easy on it. Let off of it. Actually, we didn't finish getting this tight right here. Alright, try that again. It's to the floor. No pressure. Okay, I can hear something moving inside there.
That's me moving the clutch pedal back and forward. Otherwise, the clutch pedal just kind of hangs. Like it doesn't go up all the way back to its spot.
Let's see if this is. Hold on a minute. Okay, so I don't know if y'all could actually tell, but a while ago, whenever he was pushing it in on the clutch inside the car, this right here was actually separating from this. The actual slave cylinder was pushing out instead of the plunger pushing in and disengaging the clutch. So this is probably going to be something internal inside the car. So what we're going to do is just instead of trying to force it, we're just going to pull the slave cylinder back off, because it's brand new, not break it. Then we're going to pull this transmission, see what's going on inside this bell housing right up here. Be patient with us. We'll explain it here in just a minute. So there is the drive shaft. Wish we could have taken it out, but the owner of the car was getting a little bit impatient waiting on me. He went ahead and pulled it. But we are going to show you how exactly that it comes out. Just showing you the part, so that way you know what you're looking for. So, note to self, this is why I don't buy lowrider cars anymore. I'm a little bit on the chunky side now. As you can see, it's a tight fit between me and the car, despite it being on cinder blocks and jack stands. And actually, the owner was able to pull that clutch master cylinder off in the amount of time it took me to get out from underneath the front end of the car. Okay, so these cars have a type of rear brace because they are a unibody car that runs the length of it all the way to the rear end. Okay, so in order for you to take your drive shaft loose, you actually have these C-clips right here, okay? And all they are is just a simple bolt, 10 millimeter usually. Not too familiar with Trans Ams and Firebirds. I've only worked on them a few times. Majority of what I have worked on is Chevrolet, and it is trucks. But just about everything in a Chevy truck will fit in this body style of car of some sort. Just about everything cross references with Chevrolet. Anyways, you just take these two bolts loose. This clip slides off. These two bolts. This clip slides off. And then your drive shaft will actually drop down. And it just slides out of your pinion right there. Or your rear output, as some people want to call it. I'm not a very technical person myself, but I do know what I'm looking at and talking about. So, the next thing you would want to do would be, and keep all your bolts because you will have to have them, despite what some people might think that you can just throw stuff away. Next thing you want to do is pull this bolt. Sometimes it's a whole bolt that goes through, sometimes it's just a stud like this. And this is actually part of your transmission mount right here. And next thing you would want to do is get you a jack in here of some sort. If you're working off of a lift, you want a transmission jack that'll support this whole transmission. Unfortunately, we're working off the ground, so all we have is a floor jack, but that will work as long as you put it under something stable on the transmission. In this case, we'll be putting it right here to loosen off these two bolts and these two bolts right here. This is actually the support beam, or on a truck it would be called a cross member for the transmission, and the transmission mount bolts through it, and then on each side, approximately right here and right in there, if you can see it, there are bolts that go through the transmission mount, or the plate, the metal plate on top of the transmission mount, into the actual transmission. So we're going to get busy on that, and we'll get back with you in a minute. So now we are down to our last bolt on this cross member, or as some people call it, transmission support. As as everybody knows, it always helps if you have power tools. Okay, so here's where this I wouldn't call it a drive shaft support. I guess you would say it would be a bracer bar, or type of traction bar for the rear end. This is where this comes into play, different from like a truck or something. In a truck, you wouldn't have this right here. You wouldn't have to worry with it. But on this vehicle, it actually bolts directly to the transmission right here, where my socket is. Oh. So the next bolt is actually over here on the other side.
No,
it actually goes all the way through, but the nut for it is on this side. And then of course we have one up over here in a very odd position too. Chevrolet, they build it to last or to not be torn apart, one of the two. Okay, so I kind of got ahead of myself here. Kind of got excited that all we have to do is pull a couple bolts. A few bolts left. Anyways, this right here is your muffler mount. It slides on just like so. Both your bolts, this one and this one, go through the holes on it. Like I said, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves on taking this apart. And then you have your track bar, stabilizer bar, whatever you want to call it. It actually goes on. Like so. Track bar just sits in it like that. And this just kind of clips in there. If I can get it in there with one hand. Something falling down. Hopefully I'm pointing in the right direction. Oh! Nah. There we go. Okay, so once you take this top bolt loose, it'll kind of just fall down like that right there. Something simple. Push it forward. Push this tab up out of it. And it just kind of rolls out like that. Now this is the part you want to be careful about, because with jack stands supporting the actual axle back there, there's actually a little bit of pressure on this pushing up. I would imagine if you don't have it supported on the jack stands, there would be a little bit of pressure pushing down, and I would not want to be underneath it. if it was to pop loose. And then just your bracket for that slides out. You have one stud stuck through it, and then your muffler support just kind of slides out that way. Pretty simple. Sorry, like I said, we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. Had to put it back together to actually show y'all what was going on. Okay, so ordinarily this will be the part where you would have to actually start messing with this very delicate stuff here. And if you have a vehicle that actually has this shift boot and everything intact, if I was you, I would try to keep it intact, because they aren't very cheap for this vehicle and they do break very easily. But this vehicle actually has a seal down here that actually seals it, and then it has a shift boot on top of that that's made of leather. And I've heard from a lot of people that the leather actually breaks, cracks, falls in, all kinds of stuff. So just want to inform everybody of that before you go to start actually taking the bolts loose and dropping the transmission down. You might want to come up here and do some interior work. So after you get your leather shift boot off, if you even want to pull it off, some people don't, I personally would, because of how easy the boot and the retainer are of breaking or cracking on this vehicle. You can see this one right here has a crack right there, and that probably wasn't even from us trying to remove it. That was probably from just the stress of the way it's molded. So next thing would be to actually take this seal, this shift boot, shift seal, whatever you want to call it, off. That actually seals the body. And just a couple bolts here. One there, one down here. Simple stuff. Oh, it appears to have one on each side too. Two on each side. So looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolts total. Probably just simple Phillips screws. As I said before, the owner of this car is looking to get it back on the track, so he got a little bit impatient, waiting on me to come work on it for him. And from here you can see the top of the transmission. If you want to, we probably will take a Allen head and actually remove the top part of the transmission right here where your shifter goes in at. It makes it much easier if you're working on working with something like this right here, where you're working off the ground and don't have much clearance. So we're going to go ahead and pop those 4 screws off, and we'll get back to you in a minute. Okay, so here we are attempting to take the transmission loose from the motor, and as you can see, I have like 18,000 extensions strung together. It takes a lot to actually get up to where you need to be at. Just a rough idea, straight up is where we're working at right now, which is about arm's length away from where my actual ratchet is. Let me see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 6-inch, 4-inch, and 1, 2, 3 3-inch extensions strung together, and a deep well socket just to be able to reach these bolts. Now there's one right there. I believe you can see my end of my ratchet right there. There's going to be another one down about 6 inches from it, and back in behind here, And then of course there's one right here behind this little piece of tape. Right there. And likewise on the other side there'll be 3 or 4. We'll catch back up to you whenever we get them out. Okay, so now we got the transmission out, and as I was pointing to earlier, underneath the car on the left hand side there's one bolt, there's your middle one, and then here's your top one, and likewise the same thing on the other side. You got your top one, middle one, and then bottom one. Now if someone put your car together right, you'll have a dowel pin right here and right here. And all those are right here and right here. And all those is just kind of a guide to help you mount your transmission. Before you put any bolts in or anything, it kind of helps you set it right. Some people put them in, some people don't. I prefer to put them in just so the next guy down the road doesn't have a transmission fall out on him, because it's real easy to forget that you've taken all the bolts out. But anyways, we got it out, and here is pressure plate. Can't really tell it, but as you can see, there's a little bit of slack right there. It's not supposed to be quite that loose. Where his clutch sits looks nice and smooth. Looks like somebody took a grinder to it just a little bit. Driving it though, it'll take that out of it. Looks like somebody maybe took a tiger disc to it, or a buffing disc, whatever you want to call it, flap disc. But it don't look too bad. The one underneath the car looks about the same. But what this guy's problem was if I can get right here, that is not supposed to be like that. There's supposed to be a spring in there that holds it out like this, and so whenever he pushes in on the clutch, actually pulls the throw-up bearing out, and that was his problem. So y'all have a nice day and have some fun.